This is Radio TV Phono Nut, and we're revisiting this 32-inch LG television from 2008. We did a video on this recently. It was one I picked up out of the trash, and we determined that it is a Motel TV. Now, the issues we were having were, number one, we could only pick up channel 11 VHF because it appears that the TV has no provisions for over-the-air reception. Actually, I think these do have provision for over-the-air reception, but usually these Motel TVs have a provision to lock out some or all adjustments to the user. In other words, they can only be adjusted by authorized personnel with the Motel using a specialized remote. And then another problem we had was the screen would randomly turn green, and then all functions would lock up. You couldn't turn it off, you couldn't adjust the volume, you couldn't do anything. It might run for 5 minutes and do this, it might run an hour, it might run several hours. The other night I ran it for 2 hours and it never went haywire, and I just turned the TV off. Now, several people offered some suggestions. One person told me that if I had an LG remote, they gave me a procedure I could use to get it out of hotel mode without having to buy a service remote. And I thought I had a LG remote around here. I still think I got one somewhere, but you know how it is. When you need something, you can't find it, and when I don't need it, it'll turn up. So I got to looking on eBay, and I found what's supposed to be a service remote. It was under 10 bucks, so I said I'll take a gamble on that. We'll just see how it works. Now, as far as the random green screen and button lock up, someone suggested that might be an anti-theft mode, that these hotel TVs, when they're in hotel mode, they look for a connection to the hotel system, and if a connection is not found, then they'll enter into a mode that makes the TV unusable. That could be true. I'm not saying that they're lying about that, but what I'm having difficulty with is it seems like if it was going into an anti-theft mode, it would do it immediately whenever the set was powered up and the TV didn't detect being connected to the Motel system, rather than just doing it at random times. So, but I might be wrong about that. If we can get the TV out of hotel mode, then we'll just see how it operates. Now, like I mentioned in the last video, there's somebody on eBay selling used boards out of these sets for 20 bucks, free shipping. If I can get this out of hotel mode and can get the rest of the over-the-air channels, I might actually entertain the possibility of replacing the board. And if I'm lucky, I might get my money back for the TV, but I am not, if it comes to that, they're not getting this service remote. They can buy their own universal remote. I'll hang on to this in case the need ever arises that I get another one of these TVs. So we have our AA batteries in the remote. Let's use our camera to see if this thing is actually emitting an infrared signal, and it is. So we will now plug in the television and play with this and see if we can get it out of hotel mode. Alright, antenna's connected, and let's see if this remote will even turn the set on. And it does.
That's 26,000. Robbie Parker.
Okay, and I have really no idea what I'm doing here, so just gonna have to bear with me a minute. Alright, menu.
Tony Dust in the big blind with a 10-9. He says, let me join the party.
This appears to be bringing up the same things that
Tony Dust calls himself
it was bringing up before.
And the flop is a king, queen, 8.
Nice flop for Mad Marvin. He's out in front now.
Alright, let me just play with this off camera and see if I can find a button on here that'll take this thing out of hotel
Good
mode.
shot straight.
Well, I don't know what happened, but now the TV won't turn off. Still has a picture, but it will not turn off, will not change channels, will not do anything.
Tony Dunst with the Jack 10 suited.
Will not respond to remote command or front of the set. So let's unplug it and see if it'll reset. Alright, we got it back on.
Well, the reason is if he loses with these aces, he's going to throw up right in that towel.
I push the adjust button on the remote, and this is what I get.
He's made it 90,000, and Tony.
Tony going to make the call here.
Alright, that's adjust.
Great opportunity here.
Whatever this end start is, let's push that. That brings us back to this.
Robbie has flopped 3 aces, but notice
And that
Tony
brings us
has
all
flopped
this
a pair and
stuff.
a draw. We could see a lot of...
I don't know what that did. Looks like that took us to an... Alright, let's go to where it says adjust RF and see if that will do anything. Well, I'm trying if we could just get it there. This all looks like RGB stuff. That doesn't look like... Let's see what reset is. And now it's locked up again and won't respond to command. Is all this complexity really necessary? Well, now it turned back on automatically without me having to press anything. And we have no menu. Well, now it turns on automatically at plug-in, and no button has any effect on this, so I've done something to put this in some kind of lock mode. Press this button, it says P only, and now it says heat run control, whatever the heck that is. And it will not go out of it. Okay, I pressed power that time and the set went off, so let's see if it'll come back on. I tell you, this is way more complicated than it needs to be. CAD TV 11.1, so that tells us it's not on air mode. Now, what happens when I press menu? Okay, now we're back to yeah, but how the hell do you get it to over the air? How do you get it to over the air? I don't want it on CATV. Alright, while this is doing its thing, and we'll probably do the same thing that it did the last time, I'll tell you a little story. There's a church in town that has frequent rummage sales. I've been doing business with them for years. Used to, I could find something I wanted and they would either just make me a very reasonable price on the spot and I'd walk away with it, or they would just ask me, what do you want to pay for it? Just give us whatever you want and take it with you. Well, the last few times I've gone, if I found something I wanted, they didn't just simply make me a price. They had to email a picture of the item to the preacher so he could probably look it up on eBay real quick, and then he would send back and let them know what he wanted for it. And usually I would make a counter offer and they would accept it. Well, today was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I'm probably done with them. I found a Panasonic DVD player from 2001. No remote and no power cord, but this was one of the older DVD players. It was about the size of a VCR, and it actually had controls on the machine to navigate through a disc to some degree. and I found an RF modulator, and I'm sure you know what those are. That's the little box where you plug the DVD player into it and will allow connection to a television set with only an RF input. And I was thinking, you know, a couple of bucks for the modulator and maybe $5 maximum for the DVD player, since we don't know what kind of operating condition it is. Remember, I said it has no power cord and no remote. So I took it up there, and she hem-hauled around and finally told me $15 for both things, and I said no, I can't do that, and I explained to her why I couldn't do that. And she said, well, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to have to call my pastor. So she calls the preacher, and he wants her to send a picture of the thing to him, which she does. Then he calls her back and claims that he's already tested it out and it works and blah blah blah. And I said, well, I don't mean to be rude, but I've heard it works many times, and oftentimes it don't. So, and she said, well, he says he's on the way right now, he'll be here in a few minutes. Well, he finally shows up, and he found a power cord, and we plugged it into an AC outlet, no TV there to test it with. And his definition of working is that it would eject and load a DVD. And I said, well, you know, with no TV to connect it to, you know, we don't know, because I've seen plenty of DVD players that would load a disc and eject a disc, but it would not recognize the disc. So I told him I'm willing to go $5 on it. That's all I'm willing to gamble for something that we don't know if it works. And I threw in that I can buy a new DVD player at Walmart for $20. And he said, well, tell the lady over there and see what she says. So I went back to the lady, told her again. I said, you know, it'll accept a disc, but without a TV to connect it to, we don't know if it works or not. And my $5 offer still stands. And then she had to call somebody else, and they told her $20 for just the DVD player. Well, by that time I'm frustrated and disgusted. I was never rude at any time, but at that point, after wasting 15 or 20 minutes of my life over some stupid DVD player that they should have just said, give me a couple of bucks and take it with you, I just left it all with them, and probably won't be going back anytime soon. Now, you know, they claim they're running a ministry, and I also take that with a grain of salt too. Yes, I know there are lots of legitimate churches who are doing legitimate ministries that are helping a lot of people and bringing people closer to the Lord, but I know there are also plenty of these shyster preachers that their quote-unquote ministry is just fattening their wallet. And I've just got a gut feeling that this is one of those preachers. And I've had that gut feeling for quite some time. I know you're not supposed to... Well, we found 31 channels, so apparently something's different now. But I know you're not supposed to repeat and take to heart everything you hear, but I heard from a pretty reliable source that one of the members of that church lost everything they had in a house fire, and the preacher of that church refused to help this lady because she hadn't been putting in her 10% in the collection plate every Sunday. So, and if I took that to heart, that right there would be reason enough for me to never spend another penny at any of their rummage sales. Alright, we're up to channel 80, and it found 31 channels. It'll be real interesting to see what that's about. But now that I've told you my little story, we'll kill the camera and I'll be back when it's done. And this worthless pixelated mess of a DTV signal, let's see what we log in here. Alright, we now have the actual virtual channels this time. 11.3, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6. This is so pathetic. Back in the old days, you 14.1, 14.2, 14.3, 14.4, 14.5, 14.6, or 15.1. I don't think we have a 6. 15.3.
In the upper 90s.
24.1, 24.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 31, and 32. I don't know what we did, but we got it to pick up the RF off-air channels now. Now we'll just let it run and see if it continues to work, or is it going to turn green on us and lock up. This thing is not picking up channel 11 worth of flip.
And keeps them white every day just by brushing your teeth. I never thought that
it's the biggest disadvantage of digital. You either get it or you don't. Now let's just let it run and see what it does. Well, it's still running, but it's only been on about 30 minutes, and this thing's going to have to put in a lot of time before I'm convinced that it won't flake out again. Now, the only reason I can come up with is why that it was doing what it was doing as a anti-theft feature is if maybe the TV only randomly looks for the Motel system to be connected, and whenever it doesn't see that at whatever random point, it may throw itself into a lock mode. I don't know, but at this point all I can do is just watch it, and if it doesn't mess up, we'll button it back up, and if it does, then we'll decide what we're going to do at that point. But even if it doesn't mess up, this is not one that I would really feel comfortable selling anybody, because even if it don't mess up for me, I'll sell it to somebody, and within 10 minutes it'll flake out on them, and then they'll be back on my butt with it, just giving me a hard time about it, and I'm just not going to go through all the drama for the 20 or 25 bucks that I might get for this. So it'll probably just stay around here, and I'll either find a use for it or I'll just give it to somebody. And then if it goes out, then oh well, you know, it didn't cost you nothing. But like I said, whatever happens, I'm keeping this remote, because you never know when I might need it again. Put it on the news channel. That probably won't trigger a copyright notice. Other day I was talking to a guy at church, and he told me that about 20 years ago he bought a 40-something inch plasma TV, and he said, knock on wood, it's 20 years old and it hadn't given me a minute's problem. And I said, well, you know, back whenever you bought that TV, they were very expensive, and therefore they were made better than they are now, so I'm really not surprised that it's still working. I said, now you can go to Walmart and buy a 40-something inch TV for what, 202, 250, something like that. And I said, you know, in order for that to happen, I said, you know, quality has to be compromised. He said, yeah, you know, you can go out today and buy a 40-something inch TV for 1/10 of what I paid for that set back in 2003, 2004, whenever it was. And it's like I told him, you know, everything's built to a price point now. It's not about quality, it's about the lowest possible price and the maximum profits, and keeping the customers coming back for more. I mean, even this set from 2008, I mean, it's no Zenith Chromacolor 2 in terms of build quality, but I can tell that the build quality of this one is better than the crap, the more recent crap that I've seen. Okay, we had to edit out this section of the video because of copyright claim. And because the inclusion of this segment would have blocked the video in the United States, and seeing as how viewers in the United States would make up the biggest majority of who's watching, had to get rid of it. It was some Stand Up for Cancer begathon on the news channel that featured some quote-unquote entertainer, and I use that word loosely. And no, I don't have any problem with collecting money for cancer research or whatever, but I do have a problem when such content interferes with my videos. You know, when I'm in the process of doing a video, I'm not thinking about the content that's heard or seen. I'm thinking about doing the video, and all of this content ID copyright crap has gotten way ridiculous. But anyway, pretty much the story I was telling in the segment that got deleted was, I was talking about how I hate intermittent problems in electronics, especially when it's something that's not obvious, like bad solder connections or stuff like that. Reminds me of an early 80s Curtis Mathis TV that a TV repairman friend of mine gave me years ago. It was an entry-level 19-inch tin can set with standard mechanical tuners. It had an intermittent problem where it would sometimes lose horizontal sync, it would sometimes lose video, and you could whack the cabinet and it would straighten out for a while. It had been to another shop who couldn't fix it. Then they brought it to him and he couldn't do anything with it, and by that time the owner was just frustrated with it and just gave up on it and bought a new TV. So he gave it to me and I soldered the crap out of it, and I never could get it straightened out. So I had a friend of mine who saw it, and he said, if you're just going to junk that, I'll take it and put it in the basement in my laundry room. It'll do good enough for me to have a TV on or good enough for my wife to have a TV on when she's down there washing clothes. Actually, I believe he said when me or my wife are down there washing clothes. And he said if it acts up, we'll just slap it and go right on. Well, he kept it a few years, and I think he got tired of slapping it when he found and then he found a TV that he didn't have to slap, so he wanted to know if I wanted it back. So I took it back, and by this time I was determined to find out what was causing the intermittent problem, and the trouble was a faulty IC socket. I discovered by wiggling the IC in the socket it went berserk, so I took all of the ICs out of their sockets, hardwired onto the circuit board, and the TV played beautifully. Well, as beautifully as it was ever capable of playing. You might remember Curtis Mathis had a saying that went something along the lines of, the most expensive television sets in America and darn well worth it. Well, really darn well not worth it. Now, I know what I'm about to say will make Glenn Waters cry, but in my opinion, Curtis Mathis was the biggest, most overrated, and most overpriced piece of junk television that was ever made. Now, the stuff from the 60s, the tube era stuff, was sort of okay, but still that stuff was nothing to write home about. It was the TVs were generally based on RCA designs, but the parts used were generally inferior Japanese tubes and capacitors. And then the tube console stereos were okay, but when the stereos went solid state in the late 60s and the TVs went solid state in the early 70s, the quality just really tanked at that point. The TVs usually had an NEC chassis in them with either a Westinghouse or an RCA picture tube, and I'm told that Curtis Mathis bought reject tubes from the tube manufacturers. That could explain why I've rarely ever run into a solid state Curtis Mathis that still had a good tube in it. So yeah, just all you were paying for with a Curtis Mathis was that, what, the 5-year warranty you got. and I'm sure enough sets made it through the warranty without any problems, but there were still enough sets that utilized that warranty service too. But Curtis Mathis still made money. They were still laughing all the way to the bank on that scam. I think the last Curtis Mathis, or the newest Curtis Mathis I remember seeing, was a 94 model. It was actually a rebadged Zenith, complete with a bad Zenith tube, and for what they paid for that Curtis Mathis set, they could have bought two of the Zenith branded sets and still got the same crappy picture tube. And then the other day, well, a few weeks ago, I was given a Curtis Mathis set at an estate sale, big console from the late 80s. It actually had a CTC 140 RCA chassis and tube in it. I think the cabinet was made by Curtis Mathis, but the TV had RCA guts in it. So, and the cabinet was in poor condition and the chassis had problems, so I junked it out and threw the cabinet away, which is really a shame because of the CTC 140. That was a high-end chassis in its day. But those NEC, those sets with the NEC chassis, they weren't really anything to write home about. You know, somebody could have bought a Magnavox or an RCA or a Zenith for a lot less money and got a better performing TV to boot. Alright, so we're going to try to piece this video together now and hope we don't get flagged on any more copyrighted crap. And we'll let it go at that. Like I said, this set's from 2008. I've got another Gold Star or LG or whatever it is. Right now it's sitting on my trash pile. It's a 32-inch from 2017. A lady brought it to me for repair. Her nephew gave it to her, and I think it crapped out under warranty, and he just never bothered to have it fixed. He just put it in the storage room and forgot about it. Well, it's got bad backlights, and I advised her not to worry about it, not to spend any money on it. These newer LG sets with the LED backlights, I think they're the world's worst for backlight failure, and the backlights will also turn blue, which will cause the picture to be blue, of course. And you can look at this TV from 2008 and that LG from 2017. It's on my trash pile, and you can tell just how much they cheapened out the construction of these over the period of 9 or 10 years. Now, you know, this TV here is no Zenith Chromacolor 2, but it is built better than the crap they're making now. We're about 4 hours and no hiccups yet, so I'll let it run a little while longer, and if nothing screws up, then I'll put the back on it tomorrow and call it done. Of course, when I put the back on it, that'll be when it goes haywire. That's usually when they mess up. Remember instances back from the old days where TV would run perfectly for hours, if not days, and then you'd put the back on it and then it'd go haywire.
Tinfoil, and I had inconsistent results, and plus
Believe it or not, I'm taking somebody to... 92% of students in high-need schools can't
Yeah, I think this thing hit on 31 channels during the scan.
are there to help by giving millions.
Whenever I was little, we didn't have that many channels on the cable system. But back then, the quality of programming was largely better than the crap we got now.
Division captains to be present. Now, Captain Jameson will be in charge of writing.
Although we do have several channels on this lineup, it shows older programs that I could tolerate to watch. What I really can't tolerate is all of the pointless commercials.
Regina. Yeah, let's keep thinking.
You invited me.
Is this thing not going to 14?
Oh, I hope so. If you will allow me.
It did that before. It went through the 11 sequence twice, and then it went to 14. So I don't know what's up with that.
To the phone and make that call and let us be able to send this.
You what? I'm not fighting, sir!
To stay ahead of the storm, we are your partner when the power and an even better.
Oh, we got the thugs out tonight.
Right now.
50% off, honey!
That's about a nightly occurrence in Meridian. In some part of town or another, you can just about count on that happening.
Is this chocolate?
Alright, 11-1.
To make a lot of money.
Nothing.
And see, it goes from 11-6 back to 1. And then we go through the sequence again. And
Previously,
yeah, that's 14-1.
Those with weakened immune systems may
24-1. Yeah, the rest of them seem to run through fine. It's just the 11 sequence that runs around twice for some silly reason. Off and call it a night. Alright, let's see if it powers back on. Yep, it powers back on.
I just can't get off this idea of you going into Central Park and being angry.
Yeah, that was like.
Paso County
Well,
Sheriff's
I'll be
Office to release
SOB.
it. We wanted the
Thing
public
played
to see
what,
for
7
themselves
hours
what
last
exactly
night,
happened
didn't
on
screw
this
up.
day. And
Turn it
to
on this
understand why the
afternoon, come
criminal
out here and I'm
charges
greeted with
related
this
to
crap.
troubling
So
incident weren't
I'm about to
enough
decide,
put
do I
the
want to
suspect
order a
behind
$20
bars,
used board to put in here and
potentially
see what
prevent the mass
happens,
shooting
or
at
do I just want to take the thing, throw it in the garbage?
Recognize the whole
And I
neighborhood
unplug
could
it,
be in danger.
plug it back in, and it has a picture again.
She said if you breach that house or go in that house,
If I knew for definite that ordering a board would solve this problem,
To come outside.
I'd probably do it, but who knows, I might get a defective board. You just never know. And I just really don't want to spend I just really don't want to spend money on this thing that I end up losing.
Recover weapons from the home.
And it played about 2 minutes and went bonkers again. So whatever this is, apparently is a thermal fault. Alright, I guess we're going to cut it off for now. And if I decide to order a board for this TV, I suppose you'll see another video. If I don't decide to order a board, then you won't see another video. The only thing I can say, last night when we were running this, it was not as hot out here. Today it's pushing 100 degrees and we're out in the sunshine, and the heat could have had something to do with this. So as far as ordering a board, the only redeeming grace is that they do accept returns, provided you send the board back that they sent you. I know some people pull the bait and switch tactic with eBay, but I would never pull a stunt like that. I wouldn't want it done to me, and I'm not going to do it to anybody else. But if I get a board that's actually defective, which it could very well be, then they're going to get it back. So that's the only redeeming grace. Now, really the only reason I would want to fix this is because I see that it does have a decent picture when it works, and a working flat screen would be somewhat easier to get rid of, even if all I got was my money back out of it, than getting rid of a flat screen that doesn't work. I mean, they're getting more and more picky about what they'll take and what they don't take as far as trash pickup. And these electronics, especially TVs, are getting harder and harder to get rid of. In fact, the landfill recently told my friend that we will not accept TVs or monitors of any kind, and if we get caught with them, we'll be fined severely. Well, what's going to end up happening with the garbage collection companies not accepting these things, and the landfills not accepting them, and the recycle places that do accept them charge you $25 to do so, you're going to find a lot of people dumping stuff on the side of the road in the middle of the night, or throwing stuff off in somebody's dumpster in the middle of the night, and in my mind, stuff like that is worse than the garbage people taking the sets. But anyway, I'll shut up now, and we'll let you see what you think about our progress so far, and I'll kick it around in my head. If I decide to order a board, I will, and if I don't, I won't. Alright, an update on the TV, and I probably better get this on another channel that probably won't nail us for copyright. This TV today has been on about 4 hours and counting. And by the way, it is inside the air-conditioned house with the back removed. About 4 hours and counting today, and no issues. Yesterday it was on for about 16 hours, no issues. And the day before that it was on for about 7 hours and not one hiccup. So I'm starting to believe that it's a thermal issue going on, because the times before that it messed up, it was either under my carport or it was sitting on the table beside my carport, and it's been in the 90s and low hundreds every day out there. So I'm wondering if it was just so hot outside that there's something in here that's borderline, and the extreme temperature outside is just causing issues.
I'm going to make sure.
So what I'm going to try now, we're going to take a hair dryer and I'm going to blow it on that main board and see if we can simulate the problem. Another thing I'm noticing is this black area here. It's not noticeable on all scenes. It's like the screen is dark on the back side or something. I don't know. I'm sure it's heat related from the lamps, but that's another reason why I'm probably not going to order a board for this set, because I probably couldn't even get my money back out of the thing, and I'm TV poor, as they say, you know. So probably what's going to end up happening, I'm going to end up giving this thing away as it is and just being done with it.
Portability.
And 5 years ago, there were about a dozen.
Alright. Let's blow some hot air in here and see what happens. I'll be back if something takes place. Alright, I've got this thing good and hot, and it is not messing up. Okay, it just messed up. Okay, so it's definitely a thermal fault. Alright, when it screwed up, I was aiming the hairdryer at the upper right hand corner of the power supply board. So we're going to let this cool down several hours and fire it back up, and then we'll hit that area again with the hairdryer, and if it messes up, then we can safely assume that the fault is on the power supply. I could see dirty B plus or a voltage dropping out altogether, causing the problem that we're having. Now, as far as finding a home for this TV, assuming we can correct the problem, really about the only one that would probably buy this would be, say, somebody who just wanted something for a kid's room, or an older person, or somebody to put a TV at a hunting camp where if it got stolen they wouldn't be out much. I know a few years ago I had a lady buy a small flat screen TV from me, and she said she was buying it for her grandson, who I believe she said she had custody of him. And she said she was buying him a used TV because she was tired of buying new ones and him knocking them off and breaking them. Now, of course, I didn't say this out loud because it's none of my business how people raise their kids, but I was sure thinking to myself, no, instead of you continuing to buy him televisions, you need to wear his butt out. I'll tell you what, had I broken a TV, that would have been the end for me. There wouldn't have been another one. And then after I got the butt warming that I would have received, I wouldn't have even thought about breaking another one. But I never thought about breaking one anyway, because I knew what would happen if I did. So there you go. Alright, so we'll let this thing cool down a few hours, and then we'll fire it up again, and then we'll hit that area with a hairdryer just to confirm, and then we'll concentrate. If that proves to be the trouble spot, then we'll concentrate our efforts on that particular area.
Federal judge hearing the case over the buoys on the U.S.-Mexico border.
Okay, we've allowed a sufficient cool down period, and we're back working again. And now I'm going to hit that power supply board with a hairdryer and see if that causes us to flake out again. If it does, then I think we know where to look. Alright, we'll just let it sit there a minute, and I'll be back with my findings. Okay, so now it's not doing it, so we will concentrate back on the main board. Well, oddly enough, now it's not doing it. Now it's trying to act like it's going to mess up. It looks like it's got scan lines on a CRT set that are stretched apart, so maybe we're getting somewhere. We have these vertical bars on the screen. Let's see if it'll turn off now. You know, before when it... Okay, now it is not responding to command. But instead of a solid colored screen, now we have all these vertical bars. Let's unplug it and see if it'll reset and work. Alright, let's see what happens now. Alright, now it comes back on to normal. It's been off about 15 minutes. Yeah, you notice that little,
then you have an infant death. The American Academy of
discolored area right there.
Under 6 months should only be drinking breast milk or formula. After that, from 6 to 12 months, they should only be given 4 to 8 ounces.
Really, that don't really bother me that much, but it might bother some people, and you know how it is when you're trying to sell something. They'll nitpick something to death and use any little thing they can come up with as a reason to try to get it for less money.
Moms trying to do the right thing, especially our young moms, because you know we have.
All right, we're going to hit the main board again. Alright, come on, do something stupid. Alright, I'll cut the camera off and be back when something happens. Well, now it's not screwing up. Okay, well yes it is screwing up. I guess the heat had to sink in for a few seconds. Now it's locked up and we just have a blank screen with no response to any buttons. We have backlights, but we don't have anything else. Well, I'm trying to get the shield off of this main board, and this is not just a case of remove 4 screws and the shield pops off. It all bolts together, and then this other assembly here had to be removed in order to get all the screws out that holds this in place. And I can't find any other screws, but yet this top half of this shield still won't release, so I'm about ready just to put it back together and throw the whole thing in file 13. You know, I'm not too crazy about working on these kind of sets anyway, so it's not going to take much of an excuse for me to get me to smash this thing on the pavement and be done with it. Alright, it's now repaired the proper way. Alright, let's see if the XL100 from 1985 still works.
Okay, so we're $50,000. The chase is on.
Well, yeah, it's still working.
Here's your first question. To be called a kegler, a person needs...
And you can bet when I have to do something with this one, I won't have to take 15 pounds of shielding out of it to work on it either. Well, the electronic tuner module is encased in a shield, but it's not difficult to get the color off.
So just say check. In the counter. The blonde?
I think I've got some repair footage on this. If I do, I'll put it together and make a video of it. It wasn't much to it.
Social realism. It's your favorite type of...
We're down.
Barbara Lopez, thank you for that reporting. We appreciate it.
And you all wonder why I feel the way I do about these flat screens. It's just stuff just such as what we just experienced with that one, and all the ones I get with bad backlights. And it's not just a matter of unscrewing a bulb and putting a new one in there. You got to take the panel off, and it's just more of a procedure than it's worth for something that you can replace for $200 at Walmart. So there you go. So we started the video off with violence, and we sort of ended the video with a violent end to a crappy television set. And here's the little kitchen TV, a 13-inch RCA XL100 with a rotary dial tuner from 1987, made after the GE buyout, but this uses a CTC 135 chassis, which I think was a carryover from RCA, with our approved flat screen TV repair device located right next to the TV. Years ago we had a little 13-inch set in here with a converter box on it, and then a friend of my mother's gave her she was moving and she gave her a 32-inch Magnavox aka Funai flat screen. So that got put in here, and we used that in the kitchen until my mother passed away, and then I used it for a little while. And then her friend that gave her that TV, you know, we had been talking throughout my mother's illness, and she called me and asked me one day if I had like a smaller flat screen TV that I'd be willing to sell. They wanted one for their kitchen, and of course in today's world 32 inch is considered a smaller TV. So I said, well, I've got that one that you gave my mother. If you want it, you're welcome to it, you know, just come get it. Well, that's been about 3 or 4 months ago, and it's still sitting on my floor over here. Now, of course, what will happen, the minute I get rid of it, she'll call me up and tell me she's coming to get it. Now, this set here, this is one that a lady at a yard sale gave me. It'd been sitting up in her attic for years. She gave me this and some black plastic, silver plastic crap, 13 inch with a dud VCR built in it, and I've already EOL'd that set. But this one just had dirty pots and needed a grayscale touch up, and the color tint and all that pots are still touchy, but you know, it's no big deal. It's a kitchen TV. I don't know what it was with RCA and cheap pots, but my cousin on my dad's side of the house, he's no longer with us now, but during my lifetime, the only TV I remember him having was a 25 inch RCA XL100 from about 72 or 73. It had the, I think it was a CTC 46. It was the upright modular chassis, and then the speaker tilted down, and you had the controls hidden inside of the speaker bin. I think he bought that set from a TV shop in the early 80s. It was one that they repaired, and the owner never picked it up, so he bought it from them. And then in the 90s it started giving trouble, and he would ask me to fix it. Well, by the end of the 90s and into the early 2000s, stuff was going wrong with it every time we turned around. Horizontal deflection SCRs, the tripler, the filter capacitors, replaced a few modules here and there over the years in it, and those slide controls behind the speaker were so touchy that even cleaning them wouldn't help. If you walked too hard in front of the TV, the tint might shift, or the color might run wide open, or whatever, and it got to the point I was begging him, John David, let me bring you another TV. This thing, it's, you know, I'm all for keeping one going as long as possible, but it's time to retire this one. No, I like that TV. I want to hang on to it. Well, finally, I think it was the blue gun in the CRT that went kaput, and by that time, I don't think the parts house had any CRTs left, so I condemned the TV and pretty much told him, you know, I know you want to hang on to this, but at this point, it's past hanging on to, unless you want to watch it with no blue. So he finally let me haul it off. I don't even think I brought it home. I think I just hauled it straight to the dump and got rid of it. And I brought him a 27 inch JVC with a remote. And shortly after that, he told me, man, if I'd have known how much I was going to enjoy that remote control, I'd have given up on that RCA years ago. He said, it's nice just to be able to sit in the chair and just pick up a remote and adjust the TV and not have to get up and walk over to it. So, I think he died in 2010 or 2011, and I know he still had that set when they flipped over to digital, because I'm the one that connected a DTV box to it, and I'm sure he probably still had it when he died, because he was not one of those to just spend money on something unless he just had to. I know his first wife left him in the early 80s, and then I think he briefly remarried in the mid-'80s to somebody who was a lot younger than he was, and that marriage lasted about 30 seconds. In fact, we didn't even know he'd gotten married until way after the fact, but I think that was a case where she probably figured, yeah, older man, he's probably got all kind of money and I can get it all. And then she found out he wasn't going to spend none on her, so adios. Oh, and something I'm kind of mulling around in my brain. It's not going to happen anytime soon, if it happens at all, but I've been thinking about, instead of having a DTV box tethered to each TV in the house, making up my own little cable head end, if you will, where I'll have several DTV converter boxes connected to a master antenna, and have each box tuned to the channels that I would watch the most, and then have each box connected to an agile modulator tuned to my channels of choice, and then have the output of the modulators going through a combiner and then running cable throughout the house, and then I can use the tuner in the television just like we did in the old days. And then I won't have to worry about having a box on all the TVs, and the TV operation can be more authentic like it used to be. I could put, say, CBS on 5, ABC on 6, NBC on 7, the news channel on 8, which is actually what the old cable lineup was years ago, and then, you know, put some of the channels that show the older programming on some of the other remaining VHF channels. Might even put something on UHF too, so we can utilize both tuners. But that's just something I'm mulling over in my head that might take place one of these years.
I'm curious to know.
Now here's one of my flat screen success stories, one of the few that there's been. A 32-inch Samsung from, I think, 2014. I think I actually did a video on this years ago. A fella gave it to me whenever it was about 2 years old, after it had stopped working, and he took it to a local repair shop and they wanted $250 to fix it. So he was going to trash it, and then he suddenly remembered that I like tinkering with old TVs, so he gave it to me, and it had one bloated cap in the power supply. I think it was a 47 microfarad 250 volt, and I replaced that, and it came to life. Well, it just so happened that the TV that was in here was a 27-inch JVC CRT set, and shortly before I got this set here, I was going to church one day, and the vertical IC in the JVC shorted and popped and let out a very minute bit of smoke. Well, that freaked my mother out, and she called me on my cell phone and told me the TV was on fire. And I just asked more specifically what happened, and she told me, and I said, well, I think it'll be okay until I get home. Just unplug it from the wall and it ought to be okay. So I got home and checked it out and found what was wrong with it, and I was going to fix it, and she let me know, no, I don't want that TV back in here. Which, that's not new. I got a lot of Zenith Chromacolor 2s back in the 90s when the tripler would arc, and it seems like once a TV has a smoke or fire event, even if it's a minor event, the owners don't want nothing to do with them again. But anyway, my mother wanted nothing to do with that JVC. So when I came up with this set here, I thought, well, I could put it up for sale, but I probably wouldn't get much for it, and then if it dies, then they're going to be back on me with it, and I'm not going to put up with the drama. So I put the TV in here in the wall unit it's from the CRT era, and about a 32-inch flat screen is about as big as what'll fit in here. So my mother watched this set from 2016 until she went in the hospital for the final time on Christmas Eve of 2022, and then unfortunately never came home. Of course, when she went in the hospital that night, I had no idea that that would be the last time she would be in this house, but that's just the way it was. But funny story on this wall unit too, while I'm telling stories. Now, growing up, my grandparents who adopted me and raised me, you know, and I know for years, Mama, which is who I referred to my grandmother who adopted me as, Mama wanted a wall unit so bad that she couldn't hardly stand herself, and Daddy told her, well, you'll never have one. Well, Daddy died in '97, and within a month, she was making arrangements to have a wall unit. I came home from school one day. I was in college. I came home from school, and she told me, Brian, you've got to get that console TV out of here. They're delivering my new wall unit tomorrow, and you need to find me a TV that will fit in here. And the console was a mid-70s Zenith Chromacolor 2 that I had found and fixed up to use over here. And I remember the first TV that was in the wall unit was a 25-inch RCA color track that I think the MTT tuner module was bad in it, and the owner didn't want to spend the money, so I put a new module in it, and that set was here for years until I found one that I liked better. And that's usually what I'd do. I'd find a TV, and then when something came along that I liked better, then I would stick it in here. But yeah, you know, I'll probably still take the flat screen sets if they're given to me, like that one I just EOL'd. There's parts, capacitors, big diodes, heat sinks, that sort of thing off the power supply that I can use for other things. But I'm not going to be doing any extensive repairs to flat screens. If it's something like a Kapp or shorted diode or something that I can fix quickly and easily, then great. But as far as spending money on replacement boards and pulling panels off and replacing backlight strips or bypassing LEDs or anything like that, no, I'm just not going to do that. Now, I've learned a lot about flat screens from our friend 12 Volt Vids that's always working on flat screen TVs. From his commentary, I don't think he likes working on them too much either, but you know, he finds them for free, and if he can get them going, then you know, he can make a few dollars off of them maybe. But my biggest thing is, even if I get one going and sell it to somebody for 20 bucks, then it quits working, and then they're back on my butt with it, and I'm just not, like I've already mentioned, I'm just not up for the drama. And me personally, if I bought a TV for 20 bucks and it crapped out, they'd never hear another word out of me. But most people today have the Walmart mentality, as I call it. Like the lady across the street that was having a yard sale, and a lamp she sold for $2 failed to work when they got home with it, so they brought it back and demanded their money back. They probably spent more in gas coming back to get the refund than what they paid for the lamp in the first place. And then there was somebody I know that told me not long ago they witnessed somebody bringing a CRT set back to the thrift store that they paid 10 bucks for and demanded a refund because it wouldn't work, and when the thrift store refused to give it to them, then they threatened violence and all this kind of good stuff, and the thrift store finally just gave them their money back and told them don't come back. You can bet there was probably nothing wrong with the set. It was probably they didn't know that you had to hook it to a converter box to get anything, and then when they couldn't pick up anything by simply connecting an antenna to it, then you know, they threw a fit and brought the TV back. But anyway, I've rambled on enough. I think I've wasted enough of your time, so we're going to get out of here. As far as this little set here, part of me says to find it a home, but the other part of me says it ain't hurting a thing sitting right where it is. And since my mother passed away in February, I can honestly say the only time I've come in this room was if I needed to come in here to get something, and this TV probably hadn't been used 15 minutes since since she went in the hospital in late December. So when I watch TV, I watch my little current TV of choice, a little 20-inch Sharp, and it does just fine for what I need it to do. And as long as I can watch over-the-air channels, DVDs, and VHS tapes, that's all I really need it to do.